We'll go on to number 5. Roger Goodwin is here, our Chief County Engineer, with a few items for the commission. Hi, Roger.
Hi there. First item I have is related to Chapel View subdivision, and then I have the impact fees, annual report, capital improvement plan, and a proposed ordinance amendment on impact fees. So with Chapel View, it's a subdivision where the developer walked out on completing the work, and County Commission called in the bond, and the HOA wants to move ahead with completing the site work, managing it themselves, because we fit these in engineering as time allows, and it does get lengthy to get a project bid and the contractor go on and get it completed. And so they want to be able to hire an engineer to just manage that for them and get it done, and we're in support of that. So I'll just go over this. The developer, Chapel View subdivision, Orchard Knolls, defaulted on their bonding agreement and failed to complete the site improvements. As a result, the County Commission called in the bond in August of 2010. There's about $226,263 being held in the bank escrow account at the Bank of Charlestown for use toward completion of the site improvements. In previous discussion before the County Commission several years ago, it was agreed that the Chapel View subdivision HOA could move ahead with managing the completion of the site improvements in order to speed up the process. They have since hired CTL Engineering, Inc. from Morgantown, West Virginia to help them bid the work and oversee completion of the work. CTL Engineering has completed the scope of work, estimated the quantities, and provided a cost estimate for the work. And we looked at that in the engineering office. Their plans or maps that they drew up, their quantities and everything, and they followed the same procedure that we would if we were trying to do it ourselves in-house. So we don't have an issue with what's been done so far. The next step is to move ahead with developing the scope of work and bid documents. In order to do so, the HOA has agreed to the attached plan for managing the project. Under the plan, the County Commission will still hold the bond funds in the bank escrow account and issue payment for the work from the available funds upon receipt of approved invoices. The engineering office will provide general oversight to ensure the funds are expended only for site work related to the expenses, The engineering project management costs are part of the cost of completing the site work. To date, the HOA has incurred engineering and project management costs of $15,482.05. The Chapel View subdivision HOA is requesting approval from the County Commission of the proposed plan for how they're going to manage completion of the work and coordinate it with our office, and for reimbursement of the bond funds for the engineering costs that they've incurred to date. CTL Engineering invoices an amount of $15,482.05 were attached to this agenda request. The engineering office recommends approval of the plan and reimbursement to the Chapel View subdivision HOA for the CTL Engineering Inc. paid invoices. So we have two motions that we proposed to approve the plan and one to approve reimbursement of those costs.
Okay. Well,
Excuse me.
That's okay.
And there is representation from the HOA here.
Okay. Yeah.
See it back there.
Where is this exactly?
It's right over on the Berkeley County line. Part of the subdivision lies across the Berkeley County line, and the other part's in Jefferson County, and it's near like the Coast
The
Guard
bridge right
Center.
there. Yeah, I know exactly what that is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because
Yes.
some of that land is just completely, yeah, you can see where it's been like ripped down a little bit and stuff, if that's where, yeah. All right, that's fine. I was just thinking out loud. Don't worry.
Roger, is the subdivision itself,
I mean, is all the lots sold, or,
I believe so.
so if you do all this, there won't be somebody coming back later and saying, why didn't you do our part, or something like that? I mean, in the Jefferson County part I'm talking about.
Right. What they've done is they've gone into the Jefferson County part, identified what the issues are, and there isn't enough money to cover everything. So the focus is on like storm drainage, erosion, stormwater management, and finishing paving the streets. The base course was put down, but the surface course wasn't put down, and there's going to have to be some repairs done before they do that. So they've, I think, are moving towards prioritizing what they're going to do, what's the best way to spend the money, which is the approach that we always take with the subdivision. So I think in answer to your question, I think they're doing things that are a benefit of all the people on the Jefferson County side of the subdivision.
Well, it sounds to me like they're doing a yeoman's job of getting this worked out, because I know that's a big undertaking, and you have to have people that are committed and dedicated to seeing to it that the funds are used in the most efficient manner. And so
The portion of the subdivision in Berkeley County was completed under Berkeley County regs, and they're not the same as ours, correct? So that bond only covers the Jefferson County portion? Okay,
Correct.
I see you.
Berkeley-
See Becky's raising her head,
Yeah,
yeah.
and that's what
I'd say
the
the Berkeley
information
County
says.
side is somewhere around probably 25% of the total subdivision, I think. You know,
Yeah.
it's a smaller part, as I recall. And
I just
and I
wanted to
won't get
be,
into it, but Berkeley County had a bond, and that bond's since been released.
I just wanted to be clear that what we're voting on is, and the bonding amount was only for the Jefferson County side and so forth. So a lot of heads shaking, so.
I think that's what the,
Yeah.
that's what the draft
And
copy of the
when we
letter
reviewed
indicates.
the CTL Engineering's assessment of what was there, they found issues on the Berkeley County side, and we pointed out to the HOA that the funds from our bond cannot be used to fix those things on the Berkeley
Yeah.
County side, and that's why we wanted a plan for how we're going to provide oversight and approve the release of the money to ensure that that doesn't occur.
Okay, good. Well, you answered my concern, so.
There are representatives in the back of the room if anyone has any questions for them. No? Okay.
I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve the Chapel View subdivision HOA being allowed to manage the completion of the site improvements as outlined in the draft letter from the engineering office dated February 7th, 2019.
Second? Is there discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion to signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And there's a second motion, and I'll make that that we move to approve reimbursement to the Chapel View subdivision HOA for invoices paid to date from CTL Engineering, Inc. in the amount of $15,482.05.
Second.
Is there discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you. And now we'll move on. I think that concludes that.
Yes.
That item, so we'll move on to the Office of Impact Fee discussion.
Right. Okay, so first thing I have to present is the 2018 annual report for impact fees.
We can't hear.
Yeah, you're going to have to, do we have another one?
Is that on? There we go. Okay. The annual report each year is essentially your document or your formal record of what transpired in the prior year and how you spent your funds and the proof that you spent them as they're required to be spent. So that's the purpose of the annual report. And then your capital improvement plan is your look ahead as to how you want to spend your funds in the next fiscal year, and that they're being spent on those things that they're allowed to be spent on. So that said, this is the calendar year 2018 annual report. The ordinance in the state code requires that we submit the annual report to the county commission, who shall receive the annual report and which may take such actions as they deem appropriate, including but not limited to requesting additional data or analysis and holding public workshops or public hearings. The impact fees annual report for calendar year 2018 is attached, and I just point out that there's a section in there that requires inflationary adjustments, and we can talk about those later. So I'm just going to go through and kind of summarize this report. Permitting for new residential construction in Jefferson County in calendar year 2018 increased relative to calendar year 2019, while commercial was decreased to the prior year's units. So if you look in Table 1 on page 4 at the bottom, calendar year 2017, we had 251 residential permits. In calendar year 2018, we had 287. Non-residential or your commercial, we had 7 permits in 2017, and we had 5 in 2018. The accounting fees collected to date is based on the calendar year. Since this report's due to the Commission in January of each year, the values reported below in Table 2 span the fiscal years 2018 and 2019 and run from January 1, 2018 through December 31, 2018. Table 2 presents the total fee collection, while Tables 3 and 4 present the financial data categorized into county and municipal districts. The financial transaction information for the Office of Impact Fees General Account is presented in Table 5, and Table 6 presents the financial data for each of the 4 long-term impact fee holding accounts, which are schools, law enforcement, parks and recreation, and EMS. So you'll see in Table 2 on page 6 that we collected a grand total of $1,618,163 in impact fees in calendar year 2018. In Table 5, it's broken down what amount of fees came from the county and what came from the municipal districts. So you have $880,543 came from county projects, which is about 54% of the total. And then in Table 4 on page 8, you have $737,620 came from the municipal districts, which would be Bolivar, Charlestown, Ranson, Shepherdstown, and that's about 46% of the total.
Ranson's doing pretty well with those. Charlestown's not so well.
Yeah. And then Table 5 is just the general accounting of the general account. And Table 6, the impact fee holding accounts, that's on page 10, shows the 4 impact fee entities and the balance that was in their account as of January 1, 2019, the end of this calendar year. For schools was $2,869,000. Law enforcement had about $134,000, and law enforcement covers the sheriff's department. Parks and Rec had $186,000, and EMS, the ambulance authority, had $18,000. So fees are dispersed from the long-term accounts for only 2 reasons: either a refund back to a person who's decided not to carry through with a permit and a project, or a requisition from one of the impact fee entities. The fee fundable projects for fiscal year 2019, along with the approved funding amounts, are listed in Table 7 for this coming year, correct? Or current year, the current year. I get fiscal years. All right. So in the year we're currently in, which ends June 30th, we had approved $1 million towards schools, $5,000 towards law enforcement, $130,000 towards park and recreation, and $81,000 towards EMS. The impact fee holding account withdrawals in calendar year 2018, the only entity that withdrew funds was Parks and Recreation for a total of $100,000.
Other quick thing, the
Yeah.
EMS 81,000, that's not going to be able to be covered via impact fees any longer. So the commission is, how's that going to be?
The EMS we do,
But it's 81,000, there's only 18,000 in the account currently.
yeah, okay.
So
There aren't
what-
enough funds.
Are we going to have to take that upon ourselves now to, okay, so that's
I'd
it.
say
You
yes.
mentioned somewhere in here.
Yeah, it's in the report.
I see
Yeah,
it.
we point out in the capital improvement plan that
Right.
they're going to have to seek some additional funding from another source to meet their mortgage requirement. They didn't requisition any money this past year so far to put towards that. So I don't know if they've already paid it and they had a source for it, or they're going to come along here before June 30th and ask for money. Either way, it's 6 of one, half dozen the other, because if they take it now, you're going to have to make up more in the next fiscal year, or they carry over what they didn't use, and they need
I'll
less.
check on that, because with a new director, that's something that may
I
have
thought
fallen
they
through
may
the
have
cracks.
paid it this year for some reason, but look into it.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are no proposed changes to any of the impact fee ordinances. Now, when we wrote this, that was right before we decided to go ahead and bring in the affordable housing discount thing, so that's actually incorrect. We're going to propose one here. The recalculation was completed in 2015, and the new impact fees were adopted by the County Commission in April 2015 at 70% of the full calculated amount. So the amount that the consultant at that time calculated that the impact fees should be for each entity, the County Commission set that they were only going to charge 70% of that amount, and that's what it's been ever since then, since April 2015. In 2013, the County Commission adopted an ordinance which amended the law enforcement ordinance and the EMS ordinance, reducing the commercial impact fees by 99.5% of the actual impact fee calculation for new commercial development. And it's my understanding that that was done to help and encourage economic development at that time. It was decided the last time we were in to continue with the current reduced commercial impact fee until either all impact fees are ready to be reviewed, or by that they mean the next recalculation, which will be in 2020, or there's a need that pops up that would justify increasing them. So that's where we are at this point. We're still at a reduction of 99.5% on the commercial impact fees.
So that is where you make your money on, they don't pay the school impact fee because they're not sending children to school, but they do the law enforcement and the EMS fee. And that is where they are the heavy hitters, which is why those accounts are so low, I think, or partially the reason they're so low is because they pay mostly those fees. So that is just for your information to know that we're not collecting money for those services by reducing the impact fee on commercial.
Has that decrease substantiated an increase in businesses coming to the county is the question. When you reduced it, have we seen an influx of business as a result?
No. 7 this year, right?
Yeah, you can see that in the table.
I guess does 7 constitute a mass increase as a result of the decrease in commercial impact fees? Probably not. I mean,
Right. We had an increase in 2016 where we're seeing 13. But then it dropped to 7 and then 5 for this current year, so.
I guess what would it, you probably don't know this right now, but of those 7, what were those impact fees supposed to be, essentially? Are we talking like $10,000? Are we talking like $40,000?
We have that document actually, so we can actually give that to you. We don't have it with us at
Yeah, I
this
figured you
moment.
didn't have it with you. Just out of curiosity. Not that I'm going to agree to raise them or anything. I just want to know what the money was left on the table if they were at the same rates.
We do have that available.
Well, and then, yeah, I think Roger said that we're due to do recalculation in 2020. I would like to suggest, I'm not making a motion or anything, but, and you all have probably thought about this, you know, how we have to hire a consultant, do the RFP and all that. Wouldn't it be prudent to start that in this, it's probably in your budget presentation, this next fiscal year?
I had discussion with Michelle Gordon that we needed to put money in the capital outlay fund for 2020 to pay for the consultant's study. So we've already set that.
We can actually use impact fees to pay for the consultant study, right?
I'd have to research that.
I thought he said it was
Yeah,
an impact fee
consultant
fundable expense. The consultant
doesn't
was.
mention it in the
Okay.
state code. It
All
doesn't
right,
address that.
it doesn't, we'll look at it again.
Yeah.
We did get, the cost of that study is going to cost about $50,000.
Yeah.
But I think the last time we did it was 45, so we said 50 this time. But the last time we got the school board to pay for
Right,
their
they
share of the
wanted it,
study,
yeah.
which is that, the work in the study, half of it's school board
School,
related.
right, yeah.
So they paid like $24,000
Yeah, that's right.
towards that, so we could seek that funding also.
Well, I just want us to be proactive as far as getting a consultant, getting the work done, because as you all know, anything you don't know, it's a time-consuming, intense process. And, but it's got to be right for us to move forward.
And one other thing I'll say about the reduced commercial impact fee is, and we've talked about this a number of times, just the numbers you're playing with, you had 5 in 2015, then it jumped to 13 in 2016, and you're like, well, is that a result of reducing the commercial impact fee, or was it something else that lays outside our arena that drew those people in?
Interest rates or-
We don't know how to measure whether or not reducing the impact fee is actually the thing that was effective in doing that. That's where we are.
But we don't want to do anything that hurts small business either, so that's,
Yeah, to that, I would say reducing it certainly would be a help in some ways, I would think,
I mean,
versus raising it.
yeah, I mean,
So,
Right.
just logic,
or
so,
there's a number where it's just indifferent to.
yeah. Okay. So, and the impact fees procedures ordinance was amended in 2012 to provide for an affordable housing discount as required under state code. And then we're going to talk about another one that we're proposing to do now to amend that. The following projects will appear on the fiscal year 2020 Jefferson County Capital Improvement Plan. They're listed here in the table, starting on page 15. So you have the Board of Education looking for $1 million on what they call countywide expansion. It's a number of facilities. Law enforcement's to fund a weapons training qualifications range. San Michael's Park's got 2 items. It's playground construction and land acquisition. And then the EMS, their building mortgage. And so we just laid those in there. We'll talk about them more in the capital improvement plan. Proposed fee schedule changes. We anticipate the need for a recalculation study again in calendar year 2020. Inflationary adjustments. It's-
Roger,
yeah.
sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to back you up to section 2.3 on page 16. And it's talked about proposed fee boundary districts, and it's talking about law enforcement. But I thought that was also true for Parks and Rec, that the municipalities had their own Parks and Rec, and that so
Don't pay those fees, right?
they don't pay those fees the same as law enforcement. Or am I reading this the wrong way?
Here's how it works. Since Ranson, Charlestown, et cetera, have their own law enforcement, we don't assess the law enforcement impact fee in the municipal districts.
Right.
So they're a separate municipal district with a separate fee amount. When it comes to Parks and Recreation, the people that live in those municipalities are free to use the parks that are built and owned by the county. So we assess the impact fee on them also for that. The question always comes up from them, well, then why don't we get any impact fees for the
I guess.
parks in the cities?
Yeah.
That's because when the consultant does the analysis and does the value of all the assets, he's only doing it for the parks owned by the county. He does not take into account
Okay.
parks in the cities.
That's what I wanted to be clear on.
So the fee is based on maintaining the same level of service on the county parks. If you wanted to have impact fees on the city, for city parks, the Parks and Rec impact fee would then go up because you're bringing all
Right.
those assets in and increasing the value of the level that you have to maintain.
Okay, I
Does
just
that
wanted to
explain it?
understand the difference.
So they pay Parks and Rec impact fee,
Yes, they're paying it.
but if they ask for funding from the Parks and Rec impact fee, they're not entitled to it.
Correct.
Because their
We're not-
citizens use our parks.
Yeah.
Well, and we use theirs.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's-
So it seems to me like there needs to be some kind of a,
They'd be paying for their municipal parks through their general budget, essentially,
I would assume.
so. What I find funny is they get the law enforcement impact fee, yet the county pays for all the jail bills.
because you can't pay jail bills from impact fees.
Well, I'm just saying.
Right, I know,
It's
I
completely
know.
not-
Well, and it's the
but-
same thing with me. I mean, I use the Civic Center in Ranson, it doesn't cost me a penny.
But then a lot of people use Hyde Park.
And a lot of people also use Hyde
Michael,
Park.
So, no matter
Exactly.
where they live.
So it
So,
kinda-
yeah, I just wanted to make sure I understood that, because I remembered the discussion when we were mapping this out the first time, and I just couldn't remember for sure what the difference was with
And
Parks and Rec.
I think, the reason they're not entitled to get the fee that we're charging is because it's only on our parks. We could include the municipal parks in the study and then segregate that money for municipalities, and then they could, they would be entitled to get that money.
They then
If
would
they want
become
it,
a
yeah.
separate
Yeah,
boundary district where the
right.
money received from the permit applications in those districts, she would separate it
Right.
out from an accounting standpoint, and then those monies would get allocated to those municipalities. It'd
like to
become
see.
more involved in what we're doing. But right now, from where we sit and what you're assessing for, and I believe the law and probably court case, what we're doing is fair.
Well, it's something we could consider when they're recalculated.
Right.
To maybe ask, I don't know, I'm just thinking. If the cities wanted to participate in some way for the.
That's what,
Parks and
I mean,
Rec.
we would have to do that, I think, before we started charging an impact fee for their inventory. But if they were interested in participating, certainly we could do that. But the reason that their residents are paying a fee on our parks is because they use our parks. And so the fee is calculated on maintaining the level of service that we currently offer in the county parks, which are available to all residents regardless of whether or not they live inside a municipal boundary. But I think it is possible that we could include the municipalities if they wanted to, but I think we would have to ask them if that's something they were interested in doing. Yeah.
Let me ask a question on the evaluation of the county parks. I assume that does not include Morgan Grove, even though we lease it, but we don't own it. Or we manage it, let's put it that way, but we don't own it.
Morgan's Road is not included.
Okay.
Do we manage it?
Yeah.
Right now.
Right now. Well, the maintenance.
Yeah, we
Just
do
the
all of the,
maintenance.
yeah.
Right, okay. That's all, but that's all we do, right?
Well, that's most.
Yeah, they do all, yeah, so they do all of the maintenance. That might go away in the future, but right now,
Okay.
all of we maintain that park and
That's what I
manage it.
thought, yeah.
I think they do like not a festival, but like a day at the park kind of thing once or twice a year too. Parks and Rec does,
Yeah.
besides that, yeah.
The inflation adjustment. Okay. So it's generally recommended that all fee schedules not recalculated in any given calendar year be adjusted for inflation. And to do that, we use the price indexes for gross government fixed investment by type, which is published by the United States Bureau of Economic Analysis. So we're using those, in a sense, inflationary factors to determine how much the impact fee should go up from year to year. So as per the Impact Fee Procedures Ordinance, 2003-1, Section 6B, the annual inflation adjustment will be applied automatically on April 1, 2019, unless the County Commission acts to stay these adjustments. So if you want it to happen, you just don't take any action. If you don't want it to happen, then you need to tell us not to do it.
Has it happened, has it never not happened is my question.
Yes.
And if so, how
I think
frequent?
last year was the first year.
I think last year was the.
Last year, you allowed the inflationary adjustment to happen. Had it happened at any point before that? Was it
Yes.
one time?
Yes.
One time back before, early before
A
that?
while ago.
Yeah, like 2005.
Yeah, right
Yeah,
at the beginning
before,
of the program.
But every year after that, up until this past year, they stayed the inflationary adjustment. That's the history on it.
I move we stay the inflation adjustment this year.
Second. Discussion?
How much of a percentage effect does that have?
Well, we get to that on like page 19, what the differential is. If you look at table 15, looking at residential, For law enforcement, it's going to go up in, the $5 to $7 range. For Parks and Rec, it's going to go up in the $15 to $20 range. And for EMS, it's, for residential, it's going to go up, $2 to $3. And schools, it's going to go up, low end's $83 up to $134.
I mean, we did it last year. I think those increases, just from my prerogative, some of those are substantial. And building has just started recouping slightly around here. I don't think we want to do anything that holds it back, so.
I did have a question, since it was waived last year, is that included in,
Last year.
or what, was not waived last year, is that what you're saying?
Right.
They actually took the inflationary
Yeah.
adjustment last year.
We didn't do it, we didn't make the motion to stay it, so.
Well, my question is, in the past, when you skipped a year, when you look at the following year, do you double it again, or is it just goes to one time?
No, well, yeah, we're going back to what the current fee is, and in that year, if the inflationary adjustment says schools should go up 2%, we're taking what you left it at and increasing it 2%. We're not going back and saying it should have increased over the last 3 years 10% then. That's what we're doing.
And we're going to look at it next year anyway, the whole thing.
The
And
whole thing has to be recalculated next year.
If you stay at right
So-
now, every 5 years when you do recalculation, you're catching up with inflation. So,
So, is there any further discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion to stay the impact fees, inflation adjustment, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right.
so we talked about that, and so you decided to stay the inflationary adjustments. So the only other thing we're looking for is a motion to accept the 2018 annual report for the Office of Impact Fees.
And so
I thought you said there was an ordinance amendment to the affordable.
I'm going to take that up.
Oh, that's separate
Yeah.
then?
I'll move to accept the 2018 annual report for the Office of Impact Fees as presented.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Thanks, Roger. Yeah.
We're looking at the capital improvement. I read the wrong line in my.
I was going to do the impact fee procedures ordinance proposed amendment next.
Okay.
And so, West Virginia State Code, Chapter 7, Article 20 gives county commissions the authority to impose impact fees to provide for the fair distribution of costs for county development by authorizing the assessment and collection of fees to offset the cost of commercial and residential development within affected counties. State code also requires that the county provide a discounted impact fee for affordable housing in order to aid low and moderate income persons, persons on fixed incomes, the elderly, and persons with special needs to find affordable housing. It states in the code specifically low and moderate income persons, persons on fixed incomes, the elderly, and persons with special needs not being able to obtain safe, decent, and affordable housing. So that's the group that they're focusing on when they decided they wanted to require an affordable housing discount on impact fees. For these reasons, it is in the public interest to encourage counties that have imposed impact fees and those considering the imposition of impact fees to fairly assess and discount impact fees so as not to limit safe, decent, and affordable housing. A county imposing impact fees shall enact an affordable housing component with a discount impact fee schedule, which we have, based upon the new home's value compared to the most recent annual single-dwelling residential housing index. And it's to take into account your single-family, detached, single-family attached duplex, townhouses, and apartments and condominiums. And the difficulty you have here is that the housing index I think more reflects what, like essentially the single-family townhouse-type unit, what the value is, and now you're trying to use that as the basis for determining what the impact should be for apartments and condominiums, which actually have an economy of scale in their cost, and it makes it difficult to use that. And we found that out in the most recent apartment complex, that it didn't seem to achieve what it was to achieve. So this past year, the County Commission expressed a concern about several recent apartment complexes qualifying for the current impact fees, affordable housing discount, since the rental rates and amenities, and the amenities being a business center, a fitness center, a clubhouse, and swimming pool, appeared to exceed what is envisioned by the requirement for the discounted impact fee under that section of the state code. Currently, single-family homes, townhouses, duplex units, and apartments and condominium units all qualify for the affordable housing discount if their appraised value is 60% or less of the average housing cost index, which is issued annually by the state tax commissioner. The 2018 average housing value for Jefferson County is $252,851, and the median value is $209,330. Both are the highest in the state. The most recent apartment complex qualified for the affordable housing discount due to the units being valued at 48% of the average housing cost index. This 120-unit apartment complex advertises rents in the range of $1,200 for a one-bedroom unit to $1,479 for a three-bedroom unit. Electric, water, sewer, and cable utilities are not included in the rent price. That all comes from their website. The apartment complex also provides residents with a clubhouse, a business center, a fitness center, a tot lot, a dog park, and a pool. At a glance, the apartment complex that qualified for the affordable housing discount appears to be an apartment complex targeted more toward working professionals and not the demographic cited specifically in the state code.
Those developers ran to the bank laughing.
I mean, their rents are, some of them,
More than
some of the rents are
mortgages in
more than
my
my mortgage.
More than
Yeah.
mortgages, yeah, they are.
They made out bandits on it.
And wouldn't everybody like to have all those amenities? You know?
And that's my whole point, is when going back and looking at state code, if you look at the demographic that they were focusing on and requiring a discount, it looks different from what I think these apartment complexes, the clientele that they're serving.
Quick question too. There's another community being built between the church on 340 and near Aldi, towards that way, between the subway and the, is it Food Line still, I guess? There's going to be some apartments that way, aren't there? And we would use,
It's municipality, yeah, it's municipal.
All of that is municipal?
All that's municipal.
I didn't realize their border was that far. All right.
Yeah, they're-
Don't even worry about my question.
Well, they'll pay the impact fee though.
Yeah,
still have to come
the
to
impact fee, so
They still,
I guess now we have those apartments, when they build new ones potentially on that site to,
well, and there are new ones being built out at the other one too that Roger's talking
yeah.
about.
Well,
Well,
that,
they've already qualified their
Section.
second time.
They actually,
Phase 1 and Phase 2 qualify.
Yeah.
so,
is enough.
So they've already applied for phase two, but the other ones haven't. So if you amend this time, you can catch them.
they'll probably be the ones to
Right, yeah,
qualify.
right.
So Roger, what's the bottom line of, what are you changing, what's the amendment actually changing?
Okay, I'm getting to that. Okay, so in order to better promote the development of lower-cost affordable apartment complexes, the County Commission wanted to propose an amendment to the impact fees procedure ordinance that will set the threshold at a lower level for qualifying for the discount, thereby encouraging development of lower-cost apartment units meeting the demographics cited in the state code. The proposed ordinance amendment, and that's the ordinance that we attached, Section 2F, pages 19 and 20, sets the apartment/condominium threshold at 40% of the average housing cost index in order to qualify for the affordable housing discount. The proposed discounted fee amount is shown at 40% of the current apartment condominium full fee amount of $4,513 for a discounted fee amount of $1,805. So what we're saying is if they qualified for the discount, having a 40% threshold of the housing index, they would pay $1,805 versus $4,500. Now, I picked 40% for the purpose of discussion. I cranked some numbers and worked it kind of backwards as to, I think the value of those units was $1,200 when they qualified, and it would drop it down to about $1,000. I don't know if that's the magic number. It might be a thing where we pick a number, drop it. Next project that comes through, we see what the characteristics of that project is, and if we achieved what we wanted to achieve, we may have to come back and decide we want to lower it to 35%, do another amendment and drop it to 35%. I've tried to think about how to work it mathematically, and it gets into what value per unit do you achieve that something is just the basic bare essentials of what you would call affordable housing. It doesn't have all these fancy amenities to it, and I don't know where that is.
What's the average rental price per month in Jefferson County for like a one-bedroom? Are we talking, it's probably not 1,500 or what?
So the problem is you can't base it on rental price
Just like-
because
yeah.
of the state code says it has to be based on the housing index.
That's the dilemma.
So that's
They need to
what,
update state code is
Yeah.
the problem. So that
Well-
puts us in a bind slightly. doesn't
and
it?
this isn't a priority for our legislature because we're the only county who charges impact fees. We're the only county who qualifies to charge impact fees.
Special legislation
Yeah.
does this.
Yeah. So it has to be based right now on the housing index.
We need to do something about it, because once they get approved, I don't want them taking advantage of something that was not supposed to be taken advantage of just to pad their pockets as the developer, so.
How do we go about doing that? What's the
But that,
alternative?
and, well, that's what Roger is, that's why he's trying to
Yeah.
set it lower. So
Right.
right now, to qualify for affordable housing for a single family, it's 60%. So he's lowered it to kind of
whatever.
adjust for that economy of scale that that you get when you're building multiple units. And you're trying to find what the magic number is, right?
Knowing that this one qualified at 48%.
Right.
So if we dropped to 40, they would have no longer qualified. I don't know what would what would meet 40. I don't know if it's something that still has some amenities or if it's just going to be your basic apartment complex. I don't know what the magic number is.
They'll know though, so they'll potentially, it depends on the savings. They could build to that tune if they're saving an astronomical amount of money though. So here's the thing, I mean, you put it at 40, it's 8% lower. They could just do one thing slightly different or something to lower the value per se. They're going to find ins and outs here no matter what, if the dollars are as big as they are maybe. That's what we need. 40% is a good baseline. What does everybody else think?
I think that's a good place to start, at least. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
place to start, right?
I mean, I don't know what the even motion is. I
Oh,
move we amend it. Go ahead.
I've got it. I've moved to accept the proposed impact fees procedures ordinance affordable housing discount fee amendment for apartment and condominium units as submitted and put that at 40%, and then we have to schedule a public hearing.
Yes.
And I'll let you all fill in the blanks on when to have the public hearing.
I'll second that. Is there further discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Did you want to do the public hearing in the evening, or did you want to do it during a regular? So typically, if we have it during the day, we do a public hearing, in the afternoon session or on a regular county commission meeting day.
Why don't we do it in the afternoon
Okay.
of a regular?
Then we'll we'll just do it on a regular county commission day and we'll figure out
Okay.
the time.
After we get done bore.
Anybody building apartments, which is probably one developer right now,
Oh.
so. But I don't think anybody else would protest it.
So we would, February 7th, 21st is in, so we're probably looking like maybe the March 7th meeting, daytime. Okay.
Does that give you enough time to do what you need to do? Do you need to do anything to?
Now we're good.
You're good?
Yeah, I
Great.
think so. If there's an issue with public notice, we'll just adjust it.
Yeah, I looked at it, Roger, I think it's our ordinance that imposes the public hearing requirement, and I didn't think there was a legal notification requirement. I mean, we will make legal notification, but there's no,
Okay.
I don't
we'll
think there's a
research it.
notification requirement for.
Okay, next thing is the fiscal year 2020 impact fees capital improvement plan. Pursuant to West Virginia State Code, Chapter 7, Article 20, Section 6, counties which have enabled impact fees must maintain an impact fee program capital improvement plan. The requirements for a yearly impact fee capital improvement plan and the identification of impact fee fundable projects is outlined in Jefferson County Impact Fee Procedures Ordinance 2003-1, Section 3C. Presentation of the capital improvement plan traditionally follows the annual report for the Office of Impact Fees. Several impact fee projects submitted for fiscal year 2020, and so that's July 1, 2019 through June 30th, 2020. We require additional funding from other sources. These projects include the mortgage cost recovery for the EMS headquarters facility and a proposed future new Sheriff's Department facility. The cost figures for these projects are presented in the CIP report. So, this document constitutes the Jefferson County Impact Fee Program Capital Improvement Plan for fiscal year 2020. The entities eligible for impact fee funding are Jefferson County School Board, the Sheriff of Jefferson County, Jefferson County Parks and Recreation Commission, and the Jefferson County Emergency Services Agency. The total funding request for all projects under the upcoming fiscal year, as well as the next 5 outlying years, and this is like their entire wish list, is $131,880,328. But fortunately, that's down from the $132 million they proposed
Not Santa
last year.
Claus.
It's down $1 million.
Of this amount, $2,206,000 represents the funding request for fiscal year 2020. So, some entities have several options for funding available to them. So you have direct county support, so that's funding the county could provide out of their general and coal severance funds, general obligation, construction bonds, and which the school board has a bond. State support, usually through the school building authority grants or similar grants from state agencies. Federal grants, impact fees, entity-specific user fees, such as fees that Parks and Rec may charge for use of their facilities, or the fire and ambulance fee that you currently have, and then donations and gifts. And where you see this mostly would be like maybe a corporate partnership where some local business partners with the school and occasionally gives them items or money to fund certain things. So in direct county support, the county commission has the authority to use monies from the general coal severance fund to assist with the funding of county projects. In prior years, these funds have been used to build the Sam Michaels Park Community Center and to purchase and renovate several other buildings. Some of the other projects which have benefited from these funds include the Emergency Communications Center, the Sheriff's Department, the County Maintenance Facility. The old jail was renovated for the circuit court, and most recently the purchase and renovation of the Gray Building, which now houses the prosecuting attorney's office. General obligation and construction bonds. Only the county commission and the Board of Education may propose special levies to fund capital projects. In both cases, the question of a levy must be placed before the county's voters and must receive a minimum of 60% of the vote. The Board of Education has floated several construction projects of which have funded expansion and renovation projects at Jefferson High School and part of the construction costs at Washington High School. The County Commission, through its Building Commission, may borrow money from any type of lending financial institution or issue general obligation bonds. With state support, the only significant source of state supplied capital funding for the county comes from the State School Building Authority. And the school system has used impact fees as a match in order to be more successful at getting school building authority funds, is my understanding.
I think they also get an additional 1% of video lottery over and above
For capital.
per cap, yeah.
Federal support. Federal monies have not been predictable or a reliable revenue stream to fund capital projects. That's been our experience. So summary of impact fee fundable projects. Table 1 on page 5 lists all the priority 1 projects. Those are the ones that each entity is determined to be urgent or mandatory.
Roger, just a minor point on year 4. You had 18,000 there, but you only had $1 million in the.
Where are we?
Where
And-
page is that?
You were saying table 1
Table 1.
or year 4.
Okay.
Everything matches up except for that year. I noticed there.
Oh, I see,
Where are we?
right here.
Catch that.
How did I do
Okay.
It's not
yeah.
enough zeros, that's all.
Yeah, that needs fixed.
Just 1 zero.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Table 2 lists all urgent and non-urgent capital improvement projects. So that's their total wish list. And Table 3 on pages 8 and 9 identifies only those projects that we consider impact fee fundable. And then we focus on the priority 1 projects first, the ones that they consider to be urgent. So in Table 1, you only have the Board of Education and the Emergency Service Agency showing projects that are urgent or mandatory, a priority 1. So you have countywide school projects, and then you have the ambulance authorities building mortgage. Those are the things they consider urgent or mandatory. Moving over to Table 3 on page 8. These are the impact fee fundable projects, the things that, what our take is on whether they should be funded and at what level. So I'm going to start with Emergency Services Agency. Their current request is $81,000 to fund the mortgage for the coming year. We said that therefore, due to limited funds at the EMS impact fee account, this request is approved for only $20,000 of funding for fiscal year 2020, not the full $81,000 request. A request for additional funding may be made as additional EMS impact fee revenues collected during fiscal year 2020. However, at this time, funding for the $61,000 remainder of the fiscal year 2020 $81,000 request will need to come from another source. It also appears that there will be insufficient funding in future fiscal years to pay the $81,000 mortgage from impact fee funds. The ESA will have to find another funding source as we move forward in time.
One question real quick again. What, does anybody know what the outstanding balance on the mortgage of that building is?
That's in here somewhere. I read
must
it
have missed
in, like 280,000.
Yeah, no, not offhand, I don't.
Allocation, 292, 319. I'd just be interested in what the rate is and how many years and all that. Maybe I missed that, but.
Okay, so we need to know the remaining balance.
recovery,
Yeah, I saw that.
yeah.
I guess, because, I mean, I just out of curiosity, because what part of the 81,000 or the monthly payment is going to principal and interest? If we, as a commissioner of the body, increased the payment slightly, we could wipe out a few years in interest payments, just like a mortgage or something. Just, there's ways to save money there.
I don't,
That was a real low interest
Yeah.
rate because it was a USDA loan.
right, that's
it's
what,
probably
I
like
don't
2,
recall.
3%.
4%
or something like
maybe,
that.
maybe
Yeah.
4%, because
Just out
it
of
was
curiosity.
done before interest rates went way down. So it was like. it
Before
might be
interest
like
rates.
4%.
Yeah,
Before
before
Okay.
the recession,
Down.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Should refinance that thing at a lower interest rate at some point.
I don't think you can.
I
You
don't think
can't?
you can with the
Really?
USDA
I
loan.
think you're pretty locked in.
I have to look into that, just
Wait.
from experience, I think there is.
We'll contact them and see gather the information so we can bring that back to you. Okay, Parks and Recreation Commission. They asked for $160,000 towards land acquisition and $65,000 towards playground construction and equipment, for a total of $225,000. We said that full funding is currently available in the Parks and Rec impact fee account for the $160,000 request in fiscal year 2020 for the land acquisition. With regard to the playground equipment, we're saying that therefore, due to limited funds in the Park and Rec impact fee account, this request is approved for only $40,000 of funding in fiscal year 2020, not the full $65,000 request. A request for additional funding may be made as additional Parks and Rec impact fee revenue is collected during fiscal year 2020. However, at this time, funding for the $25,000 remainder of the request will need to come from another source.
Now, did they actually request money for land acquisition? Because last time I spoke with them, they were contemplating coming before the commission to request that gets changed because they want to spend money on other things than land.
Yeah.
In their current submission for fiscal
Yes.
year 2020, they're asking for $160,000 for land. So
I was just double checking.
our take is they're proposing to buy some land at some point. Yeah. What happens with impact fees is you collect them, and based on the assets that you have and maintaining the same level of service. For Parks and Rec, they have 3 capital categories. It's land, and then it's facilities, your buildings, like your rec center, your amphitheater, et cetera. And then you have equipment, so your lawnmowers, your pickup trucks, et cetera. So when we collect an impact fee amount for them, it gets put, in a sense, into an account for each line item. We divvy it up based on the percent of assets of each of those capital categories. So if they have $200,000 sitting in land to maintain the same level of service, they need to look at buying $200,000 worth of land at some point so they can keep expanding the land to provide the same amount of land per person as population grows. So that's how that works. So they have money to spend in that, and at some point they need to spend it. That's the bottom line.
I sort of got the same comment as
They would like to change the ratio it's divided up, so
Yeah.
more goes to like equipment instead of land acquisition.
I think they were being tied in on the hotel motel tax, that they had funds there that they could only spend on land, and they were concerned that,
Oh, I don't know, no, I don't think that's accurate. I don't think they can just spend it on land.
Well,
you know,
and
it was just part of it that they,
and
but it was
maybe
a
when-
small part, and they thought that, you know, it wasn't going to be a piece of land that they, at that price, they could buy. So would they
Well,
lose
they're
it the
just
next
looking at
year
what
or
they
something?
wanted to do, not
Yeah.
what they were required to do.
Well, and perhaps when things are recalculated, it'll show a different balance, because I think, Hyde Park is all land. We need more amenity, in my opinion.
At some
More
point, they have to
amenities there.
complete these parks
than,
before they keep buying more land.
Before they buy more
I
land,
think
but,
that was one of the concerns.
you know,
Okay.
but that's
I
not
understand, you're
Roger's
just the
problem.
messenger.
Yeah. It would be nice if you could throw it all into just one big kitty and
Right.
spend it however you wanted.
Yeah.
But when you're operating on the basis of maintaining the same level of service of all the things that they have for all the new people that come in, that's what you're required to do. And Stephanie, you can chime in, because there's been court cases where, for example, they may have spent all the money like on one thing, and they get challenged in court by someone who paid an impact fee and said, yeah, but I didn't get this part of it that you were charging me for.
Yeah.
So there becomes legal challenges. So you have to follow the methodology upon which you're assessing the fee to also spend the money. So if you're breaking everything you have down into certain capital categories and assessing based on that, you have to spend it based on that. It gets allocated based on that.
Right, and that was a sort of new twist when the last time it was recalculated, that we learned it really has to be kind of categorized.
We overspent some accounts, and we're
Yeah.
catching
Yeah.
up and
Right.
getting them back
Yeah.
to even. And
Right.
at some point, they'll build money in those accounts that they can spend for lawnmowers and pickup
Right,
trucks.
yeah, that's- yeah, got it, I know.
Somehow that, I don't know, it just seems like there's an imbalance there. because, you know, you're land rich and facilities poor.
That was the imbalance
Right.
from the get-go.
And I think that's
Well,
the
and it still
problem, is that
is.
when we calculated the fee,
Yeah.
they were land rich.
Yeah.
And we always have been,
Right.
because this commission provided them funding to buy land. They purchased Sam Michaels, so we've always been land rich in parks. So then when we started charging an impact fee, we had more land than we had amenities. And so that's the balance you have to keep on the impact fees.
And that's a
that's
conundrum
because
with
we
them,
had
yeah.
been, the commission, when they had, you know, more funding to provide to Parks and Rec, they were providing it to purchase land. And in fact, you know, Sam Michaels is ours, and that was all purchased with county money. And I think Height Road was also, we provided, or.
That was
yeah,
at least $1 million.
Yeah.
It was set aside for height.
Right.
Whatever, land
Right.
purchase and infrastructure too.
So it's
They
actually,
didn't-
yeah, it's a reflection
Of what we really have.
what the
We-
county commission had been providing from taxpayer funds, because that's the point of impact fees, is to make sure that your current taxpayers aren't bearing the burden of new growth.
Exactly.
So new
Right.
growth has to pay for their growth. And so because we have always given land to parks and not amenities, it was an imbalance that existed before impact fees, and it continues.
And it's a standard that was previously set that we have to live with.
So the only way to really get rid of the imbalance is to give Parks and Rec money for amenities. And then
Oh,
once you
well,
have more, right,
I would
more
see
tax money for
two
amenities,
ways, and I'm
yeah.
not saying that it couldn't be
Yeah.
legally challenged.
Right.
One would be, you need to get the percentage of buildings and facilities like that to be bigger.
Right.
And the way to do that is they'd have to seek another funding source other than impact fees, which be, say, if you went and gave them $5 million to build buildings and stuff out there, then that would change the whole percentage of assets in the allocation moving forward. The other would be, then maybe you could get rid of land and lower it. So maybe you took a Height Park that you haven't developed and you sell it and lower the percentage on the next recalculation. But then maybe you're challenged by someone who paid in earlier and said, but I paid for additional land in my impact fee, so I want a refund of that portion. That's the dilemma you face. But people, I would expect that if you did something like that no one's even going to worry about it. But I can't guarantee it.
Because there's always going to be somebody.
Roger, does the building of the amphitheater change that calculation at all?
Yes, it will, yeah, and when we do it in FY 2020, because they added an amenity, it will change it. So that was it, that's a big project. So yeah, the more amenities that they build, it'll even out that.
Start
Yes,
shifting,
right,
yeah.
it'll start shifting.
Yeah.
So, if they have any capital requests to you during budget, think about that. Because if you're giving them money, I think traditionally we're trying to expand our inventory of parks by buying land, but now they need to put things on those parks.
And we're
So,
so
and-
busy trying to maintain what we have.
Right.
That it's hard to find the funding to put the amenities on. Hopefully, this amphitheater that's going in out at St. Michael's Park will generate some revenue that they'll be able to begin expanding the amenities that are from what they are now.
So when we recalculate, we can ask the consultant, what's a way to get it where we're more heavy
Yeah.
on facilities versus
Yeah.
land?
I mean,
They can look this way, my taxes, make it so much.
Well, and maybe there's been some new rulings on impact fees too that'll give us some leeway. Or not, make it tougher.
We're not the only one, I wouldn't think we were the only community having this issue.
but we're, in West Virginia we are, but, so we're using.
course, we're the only one,
We
right.
rely heavily on case law in Florida, where they have impact fees,
Oh,
and
they
they have
have
them for a long time. And there are
Incredible
some North
parks
Carolina
there.
cases.
Yeah, incredible parks.
Moving on to the sheriff. Weapons training qualifications range, current request is $15,000, and we're saying that there's $15,000 is there to fund that.
Can I ask a question about that? I guess, would concealed weapons, I don't know what we're coming up on budget deliberations next week, so I guess we'll find out more then, but, he would maybe have some funding in concealed weapons to be able to do that, but I know he's looking for money to.
He probably does, but the sheriff is in the same boat with facilities and
Right.
equipment.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's not going to spend his concealed weapons on something that's impact fee fundable because he has very few things in that facilities requirement that meet the impact fee requirements for facilities. So, equipment, I think we've pretty much exhausted the sheriff's equipment line. So it's the same way that we, the consultant does the study. We have facilities and equipment for law enforcement, and we were heavy on equipment, and now we need to start using it for facilities. So that's why you're seeing the weapons range, because it's one of the few things that he has in facilities that's impact fee fundable.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I didn't
I'll try not to
steal your
interrupt
thunder
anymore.
there, Sheriff. Or,
Questions?
Where's the range at?
Fairgrounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, out there. Jefferson County Board of Education, they call it countywide improvement. It's improvements throughout the schools. They're asking for $1 million, and we're saying that full funding is currently available in the school account for this $1 million request in fiscal year 2020. Requisitions will be allocated 50% towards elementary school and land, that capital category, and 50% towards middle and high school land capital category. So that's what they're asking for. And when deciding which projects to fund and the funds available, we take into account the amount of funds that we believe will be available at the beginning of the next fiscal year. That's July 1 of 2019. The following four tables, starting on page 12, constitute the official cash flow analysis for each of the four impact fee categories. The financial data are cumulative from the beginning of fee collection and start date through January 1, 2019, which is 50% of the current fiscal year. The projected balance runs through the end of fiscal year 2019. For the purposes of projecting the cash flow analysis from January 1, 19 through June 30th, 19, it was assumed that the county growth rate for that period will be constant and equal to the same time period in this past year. During this period, there were 109 new single-family dwellings, 22 new townhouse structures, 4 duplex structures, and 24 multifamily apartment structures. For projecting the future cash flow from January 1 of 2019 through June 30th, 2019, we assume the following. There would be 107 single-family units, 22 townhouse units, and 4 duplex units. And while there were 4 commercial development projects in calendar year 2018, the amount of the commercial development impact fees that we collected was $40, so we ignore that for the sake of simplicity in this. So we're assuming those number of residential units, and based on that, the amount of the impact fees we would get. So when we go to page 12, table 4, for schools, we're saying as of January 1, they had $2,751,560 in their account. We're expecting by July 1 of 2019, they'll have $3,534,787, and that funding's allocated as shown in that table for each of those capital categories. And of course, on the administrative buildings and shop and school bus garage, we have to play catch up there. On law enforcement, on January 1, 2019, they had $133,672. We're projecting that on June 30th, or July 1, 2019, the beginning of the fiscal year, they'll have $155,000. Right now, they are not allowed to spend any money on vehicles and any money on equipment. Their money all has to go to like land type related and building type projects. And then those will eventually catch up. Parks and Recreation, on January 1, 2019, they had $149,135 in their account. We're projecting that on July 1, 2019, the beginning of the next fiscal year, they'll have $209,565 in their account, and they can spend up to $71,000 on park improvements and rec facilities, $188,000 on land. They cannot spend any money on maintenance equipment and vehicles, and that one's been catching up. So based on all that, that's how we decided what the fund is we've previously stated. And then EMS, of course, has $17,000 as of January 1 in their account, and we're projecting on July 1, 2019, they'll have about $23,858. So over a 6-month period, that's going to grow by about $6,000. So they're running at a rate of probably about $12,000 a year they're bringing in. So once they draw that $20,000 out in this 2020 fiscal year, they're going to be even lower moving forward. They eventually be running at spending, as they take it in, they're spending it. So you're looking at a rate of about $6,000 a year they'll have to put towards the mortgage moving forward. So that's where we are. So that's the capital improvement plan, and those are the projects that we're asking you to approve to fund. We're asking for a motion to accept the capital improvement plan as presented.
I move that we approve the fiscal year 2020 capital improvement plan for the Office of Impact Fees as presented.
Second.
Is there discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you, Roger.
I just had a question for Roger. Do you learn this in soils class or in structures?
This came from the School of Hard Knocks, I'll tell you.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
It took a lot of figuring out.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, great job.
But we're there.
Thanks.
Yeah,
We
great
got it.
job. Thank you.
I often find that Roger is an expert in many things when I
Yes,
talk to him.
absolutely.
If you recall Don Worcester and his coefficient of dispersion, I started talking to Roger about it. He's like, he's not right on that. And I- tell me more about that. So,
The one thing we'll leave you with is the amount of impact fees that have been collected through the years.
Great.
And it's on the backside too, grand total.
Thank you.
And you'll see that schools by far
Yeah.
has greatly benefited from it.
Every year the limit goes up.
All right.
So you've had a total of $29,367,000 have been collected through impact fees since they were first adopted. And of that, schools has benefited to the tune of $25,881,000. And that concludes it.
Thanks for that information.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for your presentation.
Sure.
Good job.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good job, Michelle.
So we'll move on to, we'll move back to item number 4. I know they're in the hallway talking, so let's take a break. We'll take a break and resume in about 5 minutes.